Alrighty, welcome to Avory Idea Day 2023. This is Sean Emery, the founder and partner at Avory and Company. Today we dive into some of the latest investment trends that we believe are shaping the future. We have various guests joining us today to really break things down. We're excited to have some individuals such as Anurag Rana, the head of technology at Bloomberg on the Bloomberg intelligence team. We have Ryan Engel, the founder and CEO of Golf Plus VR, one of the more successful companies / games, within Meta, Oculus, Quest ecosystem. We have Brad Hussey joining us today. He's one of the leading content creators with 600,000 plus people that have taken many of his content related courses and is a brand partner of Wix.com. We have Ethan Chernovsky from Placer AI. Good to see him come back on and discuss, foot traffic, location data, better understand, some of the trends within retail, within consumer behavior in general. We have Sean Saint from G2. He's going to talk about some of the largest and most exciting companies within software. At G2, they're one of the largest software marketplaces, have access to major trends within, technology and more. We have Seema Shah from Sensor Tower, and she will discuss, some of the trends within the app downloads and engagement around some of the companies, in 2023. And as we, start off the beginning of 2023 or 2022 figures as well. Before we move into these conversations, let's discuss, some of the major secular trends that we're exploring, but also how do we get to them? So here's 10 major trends that we are following. And you can see everything here from automation to digital work, to commerce evolution, to the future of mobility, the future of computing, and so on. Now, for us, when we think about these, we try to go a step further. And at a high level, how do we narrow in on the opportunity? So let's take automation as an example here. When we look at automation, we essentially think about it in multiple facets. What you see here on this screen is essentially various low-hanging fruit, in our view, at least, of some of the major industries or use cases where automation could be a viable and transformative solution. So you have things like healthcare, finance, marketing, employees, warehouses, so physical locations as well. Below that, you have things like diagnostics within healthcare. A lot of automation can help source and help thereafter in terms of patient care within healthcare. We've heard many things within finance, whether it's accounts receivables, accounts payables, invoicing, accounting and tax, and admin work and communication, where automation is already today playing a clear role. Our process of sourcing these secular trends we want to invest behind really starts with questions. And those questions are formulated through everyday life. I'll take a couple examples today. Some of these problems that exist in the world, they all have solutions. And really these solutions we think are the opportunity. So we take healthcare as an example. One question we pose is, why does the US spend $12,000 per capita on healthcare costs? This number is 2 to 5x other countries. Now, how do we go about finding opportunities? Here is really thinking about it, decomposing the problem. So one major problem is medication adherence. Medication adherence, as the definition, it really occurs when a patient takes their medications according to the prescribed dosage, the right time, and on the right frequency, and obviously follows direction. The consequence really here is of, medication non-adherence. That's the problem. And it ultimately has, a direct cost such as medication waste, indirect costs such as, prolonged care, readmission, all of which combine increase the cost across the system. The next question then is, who is solving this problem in general? And if they are solving it, is this a viable investment where all stakeholders along the chain really benefit? Does the patient benefit? Does the system benefit? Do the employees benefit? And obviously from our lens, can the investors benefit as well? So, that's an example. Let's go into more detail around automation, the shift to digital work, commerce evolution, the creator economy, how computing is changing. And we'll do that right now. So our first trend is really around automation. And again, when you look at our 10 building blocks here, these have been very similar building blocks going back, 3 to 4 years ago when we also had Avory Idea Day. Some of the nuances change, but generally speaking, when we're talking about secular trends, these are multi-year and in some cases, decade-long ventures. You think of software, cloud, Salesforce, 20 years old. Some of these trends can last way longer than people expect, and have, much greater implications than I think original thesis have. So we want to start today thinking about some of them. So let's go back to automation. It's really around the integration of AI, automation technologies that really has a pretty strong potential to revolutionize industries across the board. So talk about healthcare, like we just talked about, to retail. Automation is really streamlining processes, freeing up valuable human time for more meaningful work. And that word meaningful work, I think, is such an important part of the future of automation. According to a recent study by McKinsey, it's estimated that automation could contribute up to $13 trillion in global economic activity by 2030. That's a huge number, and it's pretty easy to see why. If you think about all the things you do today, how much of that could be automated, how much of that is not meaningful work, and how much more meaningful work you could possibly do. So automation is already making a huge impact in the manufacturing industry, where robots are being used to automate some of the repetitive and dangerous tasks. And again, keyword there is dangerous, but it's not just limited to that. Automation is also being used in areas like customer service, marketing, AI powered chatbots who are available, 24/7 to assist the customers. We talk with, Sean Saint from G2 around this topic. So we plan on talking about that. This trend around automation, we think, is here to stay, as ultimately what it does, it really does allow technology to be more accessible to businesses of all sizes as more and more companies create consumer grade. And we'll talk about that with Anurag in our first conversation here, when we bring him on. So I believe this trend in general, is a long-term growth trend, something that we continue to actively seek opportunities in, and that's around automation. The next one is shift to work. Digital work in general, specifically COVID-19 pandemic, really accelerated the move to remote work, to hybrid work, to a little bit less time in the office, which means more tools are needed outside of the office. And we're seeing, rapid adoption here for all those digital tools, the platforms that really enable this transition. According to a recent study by Buffer, 99% of surveyed workers want to continue working from home at least one day of the week. And that's a huge number, a clear sign that the shift to kind of remote work where you want, is here to stay. As more and more companies embrace remote work, I think the digital tools, as those continue to improve as well, we're really seeing a rise in new platforms, technologies that are enabling this transition, from project management tools to virtual event tools to other types of tools around communication. The market for digital work continues to find solutions, which is accelerating the growth even further in different ways. Now, most people focus really on the toolkits for digital work, but it's also important to focus on the ecosystem or even the second and third order impacts that exist due to, workplace becoming more digital, more fragmented. Think of weekly commuting, the trends within commuting. People are coming to work on certain days, maybe different days than before, or staying home on different days than before. So the commuting trends evolve, adapt, and we talk about that today as well. This changes consumption trends, consumption habits, and the spillover from digital work has implications for the restaurant sector, has implications for fitness, and hopefully with Ethan Chernovsky today from Placer AI, we can actually triangulate how foot traffic is trending, where are people going on what days of the week. So that's ultimately the opportunity, and having the data to access this is important. I think this trend in general, has a long-term trend. Companies are realizing the benefits of remote work, even the negatives of remote work, which ultimately is opportunity as well. And things like diverse workplace, workforce, more productivity or less productivity, and therefore you have to adapt to those circumstances. So we're excited to explore that more today. Creator economy, one of the trends that we want to talk about today. The rise of social media, online platforms has really created an entirely, new economy that's, again, highly fragmented, where creators can monetize their content and reach a global audience like they never did before. According to a recent study from Business of Fashion, the creator economy is estimated to be worth 1.2 trillion by 2027. That's a huge number, but it's also a clear sign that the creator economy trend is definitely here to stay. And why do we say that? The rise of platforms like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Substack, Wix, and many others are giving these creators the tools, to really build followings, monetize their content in ways that didn't exist before. Again, we'll speak with Brad Hussey today. He's one of the leading content creators who uses all these tools. So we want to learn more about, what's in his toolkit and how does he see this space kind of growing and evolving, and what inning are we in? Is this the beginning or is this the end? Last but not least, and again, we touch on basically all of our trends, but we do so in a way through conversation. So I think that's important. The final one is really around, the future of computing, or just how computing is changing, because it continues to change. The rise of things like quantum computing, edge computing, the continued growth of, private and public cloud. The world of, computing in general is simply just evolving. IDC has a recent report out, and they talk about edge computing, which really has to do with, low latency, high speed computing products that, sit on the edges. So think of, computers, servers that sit inside of big facilities. We wouldn't consider those, edge computing, as much as we're talking about devices, street lights that have, some sort of computing technology inside of them. These are edge cases of which continue to grow and grow as more computing power gets put into devices that are much smaller. Autonomous vehicles, edge computing, IoT, robotics, things of that sort, I think is super important. We're also moving into spatial computing. We had the Metaverse Super Series we put out, back in December, and we had, a lot of guests talking about real use case, tangible use case of VR and AR. And that's ultimately what spatial computing is. It's being able to, have computing resources, and, when you have 3D objects, whether it's VR, AR, the types of apps and requirements, whether it's architecture, basically highlighting many of these technologies and focused around that. So again, we think it's still early there, but some of the value being created around training, education is really starting to bear fruit, and we're highly excited about. I could keep going, but I really wanted to lay the foundation of today's event, wanted to bring on some of the guests to share their insights, their data, specifically around trends and some of these major themes, things that we're tracking, we're investing in. Before we dig here, let's give a disclaimer. And as always, these are not recommendations for the purchase or sell of any securities mentioned by us at Avory or any guest speaking at this event. Investing involves risk. And with that, let's bring on our first guest, Anurag Rana from Bloomberg. Enjoy the event. Reach out to us if you have any questions hereafter. And we hope to see you soon if you work with us or, somebody that we are colleagues with. All right. Have a good one.